Hey, welcome to Viking Preparedness. I'm Pastor Joe Fox. Welcome to High Prairie Acres again. I'm going to talk about time in this video. Homesteading and time. I said in a recent video that I don't live the way I do because I want to survive World War III. I live the way I do because it's a better way of living, right? And so we're up here at High Prairie Acres, just having a look around, and what I'm seeing is time. The time I have invested in this place, all the projects I have done. At one time, all of this behind me, all of this ground was a garden. It was our first Back to Eden garden, and it's beautiful. I've shown you before in older videos, the soil there is like chocolate cake. It's just amazing. But it didn't start out that way. It started out as clay. Right? Just this red clay. And we had to invest time and effort and sweat. And yes, some money into it. Our barn over here started out as a garage. And I added those wings. They were some of the first things I ever built. And yet there's issues with them. You know, issues I need to address. But I got out there and I did it. When we moved here, our driveway was dirt, and everything around here was about this high shrubs. And so I borrowed, that's how I met one of my neighbors, a brush hog on his tractor, and I just came out here and mowed everything down. And then for years I had a riding lawnmower, and I would just ride around and mow the grass. And you know, when you brush hog down brush and then you keep mowing it, it turns into grass. Imagine that. And then we fenced it and cross-fenced it and put in goat sheds and goat stalls and horse paddocks. And we built this orchard over here, which I've shown you before, you know, planted it. We started this orchard in 2004, I think. And can you see that? It has cherry trees and pear trees and apple trees. Peach trees didn't do very good. But, you know, they didn't start out mature trees like this, and we didn't get them trimmed this year, so they're going to go a year untrimmed, which doesn't strike me as a horrible thing. But again, it took time, right, to put that in. Our grapes, you know, took time to put in. And I think a lot of America, they want things now, right? I want it now. We're impatient. And we like to throw money at stuff, or we like the idea of throwing money at stuff. And so, you know, I could see, because someday we're probably going to sell this place. But I can see people saying, oh, I could never afford a place like that. I couldn't afford a place like this now, right? One, I don't have the job I used to have. Two, you know, I've done a lot of work to improve this place. And built that chicken coop. And that work, more than money, took time. Time that I had to invest, that my wife had to invest, that my kids invested. Back when I had a 40-hour-a-week job, was a pastor of a growing church, and working on the volunteer fire department, right? And yet and still, I would come out here and do a little bit of work every day after work, right? It was my relaxation, if you will. So how does that apply to you? Well, I'm fond of saying, do the best you can with what you got, where you're at. Wherever you are, start making it better. Start investing the time. You know, my wife and I moved around a lot when I was in the military, and about every 18 months we would move to a new place, you know, across the country, across the world. And early, maybe for the first third of my career, we would get into the attitude of we'd rent a house somewhere, and you know, we'd like the idea of maybe planting some roses in the front yard, or some flowers, or maybe building a compost pile or something. But it was really hard to motivate ourselves to do anything when we knew we'd be leaving in a year and a half, 2 years max. And so, picking up some clothespins. So we didn't. And we didn't improve our station in life. And the houses that when we left them, to go to a new duty station would look pretty much like when we rented them. And then it struck us, why are we doing that? We live here. This is our life. And so after that, man, we started making the places we moved into nice. My wife would plant roses, and she liked roses for a long time. I'd put a garden in. We'd do little things. And it was funny because years later when we'd circle back to that area, we'd drive by our old house and you'd see this huge rose bush, or sometimes you'd see no rose bushes. It's like, man, what happened? Where did they go? They were nice. But the thing is, we invested the time and we improved our position and we made our life better. And that's what I encourage you to do. No matter where you are, no matter what station in life you find yourself, make your place better. The other day, yesterday, my wife and I were walking through a city that we've walked through before. And she said, hey, let's go down over here. And we walked down the street. I didn't mind. It was a nice day and I needed to stretch my legs anyway. And there's a place near the sidewalk where there's just a little triangle of curb, sidewalk, road interface. And somebody had planted years ago, and it was still there, an herb garden, just out in the middle of the city. And there was like basil, and maybe they keep planting it, I guess, because some of those things are annuals. But there was like basil and rosemary and this, that, and I don't know. My wife knew what they all were, but she was picking them and smelling, going, oh man, it's still here. That was just somebody who probably lived in one of the apartments nearby, who every year just went out there and did a little bit. We frequent a Thai restaurant, and outside of the Thai restaurant, they have like the raised flower beds up against the building where most people put bushes and stuff like that. Well, this one plants basil and peppers, Thai peppers, in their little garden. And so as you're walking into the restaurant, there's a couple huge, nice pepper plants and some basil plants, sort of pad grapao, right? Doing the best you can with what you got where you're at. I encourage you to do that. Don't default to the, oh, that's too much money, I could never afford that, and just wishy-wishy. I'm telling you, this place here, it didn't look anything like it does now. All those years ago, whenever 2004 was from now, 13 years ago? Wow. It looked mostly like this, right here. Can you see these? And you know what this is? Curly duck. We eat it, right? My wife comes out here and picks weeds and makes breakfast out of it. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. You just got to start chewing. How do you improve your place? One thing at a time. One project at a time. Just get working on it. Go plant your garden. I'm encouraging everyone to plant gardens. Back in World War II, what they call them, victory gardens, so that you could kind of relieve the pressure on the food, give the people something positive to do, save money. I do not understand why or how economically challenged people don't grow huge gardens. Grow a huge garden. Grow all your food. You can do it. And if you live out in the country at all, like here at High Prairie Acres or Shofar Mountain or wherever, you can get some goats. Heck, in some places, you can have chickens in suburbia. Now, a lot of times they don't allow roosters, but you don't need a rooster to have eggs. You don't need a rooster to have meat. You could have a little chicken coop. Heck, that's what Mother Earth News is all about, right? People making those little cute little projects. They have the little projects in the pages. Why don't you do one? Why don't you do a little project? And again, you don't need money. When we lived in a third world country, in the capital city thereof, my wife decided she wanted to raise chickens. I think I just said this recently in another video. They don't have hardware stores in this country. They don't have chicken stores. So she went to the slums, bought some 2 live chickens, and then scrounged stuff off the side of the road. scraps of wood and wire and stuff because you just couldn't buy that stuff. And she built herself a little chicken coop. I kind of laughed at her, but figured it was keeping her busy. Well, you know what? Those chickens started laying eggs. Those chickens produced chicks at one point. And we got into raising chickens, right? That's how we learned how to do it, just by doing it, not being afraid to try. It didn't cost hardly any money to do it. Some of the things I did out here didn't cost very much money. I've fenced a lot of this place with, it looks like cattle panels, but they're not. They were left over here, concrete forms, or not forms, concrete. It's like the rebar that you lay down when you're pouring a slab of concrete, because our house is an in-ground house. And they were just laying in a big pile in the field, so I saved them, cut them all in half, and now they're like 4 foot high by 16 feet long, and you know, they make good fence panels. Again, just using what I had, right? And then putting some labor into it. And yeah, I bought a whole bunch of T-posts at like $2 a piece, and man, they've gone up. Things aren't getting cheaper. But I encourage you, start investing time. Invest time in your place. Invest time in your situation. Don't go, oh, I'll never have the perfect bug out retreat, so I might as well not do anything. I'll just go watch some more TV. Don't do that. Get out there and do something. I just watched This Old Homestead, and she took some bricks and was just like making like a border around her house. Why? To make it look nice. Why not? Make your place look nice. It's like now I'll get the comments for Shofar Mountain. Yeah, why don't you apply that there? I'm trying. I'm just really busy there. I work all day on big projects, the little cleanup projects. But this stuff doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen by itself unless you have a whole lot of money to invest in it. But it can happen. And it can happen for you if you simply get out there and start putting one foot in front of another, start putting your hand to the plow, and trying to make this stuff work. All right. I hope I inspire you. Go out there and plant a garden. I'll see you out there.